I don't know about you all, but my head's already spinning. I have a couple of things that continually make me challenged in trying to really understand where we are with dual language, because, if you think back to sort of the early years of implementation, we were much more heavily challenged with fidelity, with huge variances in, the models that were rolled out, 50-50 here, 70-20 or 70-30 here, 80-20 here, and having a lot of inconsistency across the board. And I think that we've made a lot of progress in that area. But so for me, that's why it's so hard to wrap my head around snapshot data, because we're not comparing cohorts to cohorts. And, even amongst individual schools, there have been, there's been a lot of progress made with regard to fidelity, whether it's additional professional development, whether it's resource support, whether it's consistency in ensuring that everybody is operating under, again, whatever the percentage is that we would ideally like to see in dual language classrooms. The other thing that I find particularly challenging when it comes to this is it still seems like we're continuing to compare students that are learning two languages simultaneously with the same benchmarks that you would expect from a student simply learning one. And a lot of the research shows that their milestones are going to be different. And I understand from a state accountability perspective, we don't necessarily have a choice, but I think from an internal perspective, I would like to see how our students are performing based on the milestones that the research suggests is appropriate for kids learning two languages at one time. And so I guess when I'm sort of thinking through what does future trend analysis look like, how can we look at things more in terms of cohort progress and looking at some of those variables at the individual campus levels that have improved fidelity, that improved the level of district support in both PD and resource allocations, but then also, not necessarily simply comparing them to where third and fifth graders are that are simply English language, native English language speakers, for example, but providing sort of both statistics. This is how they have performed on STAR tests, but at the same time, this is what their milestones should be in from third to fifth grade, and this is where they are then in fifth grade. Actually comparing the same cohorts as much as possible. I know there's, migration to some extent, but if there's a way to do that, I think, at least for me, that would provide a more consistent comparison of apples to apples, as opposed to looking at a different group of kids each year. I know that for the most part, you're talking about kids that have entered a program in, at least for the native English speakers, at the pre-K or K level, but we may have some in and out migration or some in migration that differs slightly with our native Spanish speakers. And so again, just trying to get more of an apples to apples comparison wherever possible, and to ensure that we're also considering that over the, 9 years now, I think, from the first year of dual language, that we're also accounting for the fact that we had some significant challenges in the beginning that we've had to adjust for, and some at more campuses consistently than others. Also, teacher turnover, administrator turnover, and administrator buy-in, for that matter. There was a time of day where we said you're going to do dual language, as opposed to, as we're doing the middle school and high school programs, it's, is there both administrator and teacher support to do it? That's very different from how things started. So I think that played a factor, especially in the early years, in terms of whether or not it was successful. And so if there's a way to do that in the future trend analysis, I think that would be at least more helpful for me, so that I can see more of a correlation between, as opposed to looking at snapshots of different cohorts of kids, how are our kids who have actually consistently been in the program actually progressing, and are they making the milestones that they should, not just according to the state accountability, but also to what the research indicates that they should be at.